morning, Juhani,
Good morning.
and welcome to Friction-Free Interview.
Nice to be here.
Could you please introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, I'm Juhani Vuorio. I'm working as a partner development manager here at Microsoft, working with independent software vendors, companies like Jakamo and similar companies that are producing software services for customers.
Thank you. The digital transformation is one of your missions that you drive to your customers, and we can say that you nearly preach digitalization here in Microsoft. What does it mean for you? What is the bigger concept behind it? Could you tell something more about that?
For me personally, I think I've been trying to find a good way to explain to myself what digitalization means. And the best explanation that I have found comes from Geoffrey Moore, not Gordon Moore, but Geoffrey Moore. And he talks about in companies they have two main parts. One is the core of the company, and surrounding it is the context. And the core is what makes the company survive. And the context is something that you need to have, but in order to keep most of the resources developing the core, you have to automate the context, outsource the context, or buy ready solutions for the context so that you can develop your core. And in digitalization, how I see it is that you concentrate on the core and try to minimize the risks of the context.
That's an interesting view. Could you find some example of that?
Yeah. Okay. One example from Microsoft is, of course, quite recent. I'm not sure if this is politically correct to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, and that's Windows. Up until last March, Windows was our core. But when we moved Windows developers inside Azure, that meant that the Windows as it is not our core anymore alone, because the main part of Windows is now inside Azure, which means that Azure is our new core, and Windows is the context. So we are evolving and trying to survive in this world by also changing our focus. 10 years ago, it was only Windows. Now it's cloud. So we have shifted our core from Windows to cloud. And that's a major shift, because that's 5,000 developers at Microsoft who are developing Windows. And now they are developing Windows for the biggest customer, which is Azure.
Yeah, that's visionary.
And that's transformation in order to survive. And digital transformation as a term, I think it's best defined as concentrating on your core, outsourcing your context, buying software services, outsourcing some functions that is not your core to other people which have that particular function as their own core.
Any other examples?
Another example maybe from 10 years ago could be ERP systems.
Yes.
And typically companies before that built their own ERP-like systems because they thought that they would get competitive advantage. But now those in-house built systems are a liability, because you have to develop that, and you don't have the resources like SAP and Microsoft and Oracle have for developing ERP systems. So that used to be your core is now your context, and it's a big liability. And the only way to survive is to buy a software product or software service to replace that thing that was once your core. And you could say that same applies to you if you have built portals for your subcontractors.
The supply chain.
Yeah. So if you have built an in-house system, that's probably a liability for you right now, because you don't have anymore the means to develop that. And that means that the faster you buy a software service that can replace that liability, the better off you are, and probably you get some other benefits as well.
Correct. What would be your recommendation for manufacturing companies that are planning their digital transformation journey? What would you say to them that what to concentrate on?
Find the real core, of course, and I think I can find the Jeffrey Moore short presentation about this core and context for this topic. Find the core and think about your context, which parts you can outsource, where you can buy software services to produce that function with better quality and less risk, and especially decreasing the risk of the context is quite essential. And of course, in manufacturing industry, like probably every other industry, the lifespan of your core is going to get shorter and shorter. So you have to invest more resources to the core, and perhaps also start outsourcing stuff from the core to context, and then try to minimize the risks of the context, what you are doing, like supplier portals, stuff like that, but concentrate on the core, making your processes efficient and streamline them. And once they are streamlined, they are basically your context, and you try to keep them as lean as possible and find new stuff to your core.
Yeah, I think that's something to think about. And thank you for the interview. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good.